Hello, I'm Caroline Goulard. I co-founded 2 companies in the field of data visualization. Since 10 years, I'm working to build bridges between humans and data. Today, I'm very happy to be with you for this new episode of The Bridge, the media by artifact that helps everyone understand data science and artificial intelligence. So today, we are with Anca Marola. Anca, hello.
Hi, Caroline. So it's nice to meet you. I'm Anca Marola. I'm Chief Data Officer at LVMH. I've been working with data for more than 10 years now, and with the exciting field of artificial intelligence for, I would say, about 7 years. But back in the day, people were calling it mostly statistics and math, not so much data science, machine learning, and so on.
Why did you get interested about data science coming from this industry?
You know, first of all, my background is in computer science in the beginning, in high school, but actually I didn't study afterwards computer science, so I'm not a programmer at all. I'm more of a people's person, I would say. I remember back in the day when I had the choice to do my studies in programming or something else. I said, listen, I love programming, but what I love more is people, and I don't want to be stuck behind the computer. So that's why I oriented myself towards business school. Therefore, in the beginning, I didn't really think about data so much. Although I was working with database programming, I was querying, in my first jobs working with data sets. But what I was mostly interested about was impact from the customer experience point of view and the business and people's lives perspective. And I think I started my career in marketing research. Then I did data mining, digital analytics, and then in the end ended up going towards artificial intelligence because at the time, I think it was fairly obvious to me at one point about 7 years ago that it started to impact massively our lives. So it was starting to be all around us. And that's something that we don't realize so much. It's actually in all the things that we use every day at our fingertips. You know, be it, do you use Google search? Do you use YouTube? Do you use Spotify, Netflix? All of these things are actually based on AI. So I think for me, the trigger was something big is happening, as big as the internet. I think the internet was a huge thing, but artificial intelligence was that next thing that was going to transform our lives. And I think as a retail industry, being in LVMH, I knew we had a massive amount of data because we do own that entire chain of production. You know, we design, we produce, we commercialize, and we sell to our end customers. Therefore, we really have all the value chain. And that is why we generate massive amounts of data, but we also have that opportunity to apply AI across this entire field. So that's when I first got extremely excited and flagged it to the company that we have to start working on it.
Was it easy to introduce this quite mathematical dimension? It's a bit cold in front of the culture of this company that can be more artistic, more creative.
For sure, it was perceived for a very long time as completely the opposite. When you work in creative industries, you are very proud to make decisions based on your intuition. And that is very important still, to have that human feeling that you add to your job. I think that's what really adds the magic. But for the most time, it was really perceived like incompatible. So that was the challenge, right? What does it mean for us? What can it mean in this type of situation? And I think what we tried to form as a vision is data and AI are not here to replace the creativity. They're not here to make decisions instead of the people who are talented. They're extreme craftsmen. They have extreme creativity, so data and AI are not here to replace that. It's more about giving them all of the tools and the automation and the numbers that they need to be able to have that base to make more informed decisions. So for us, we always start with that when we talk to people in the company. For example, when we talk to the merchandising teams, we say, no, it's not going to do a better job than you. but it will help you do your job better because you will save time and you will also have more inspiration at your fingertips, more insights, and so on. So that was for us the journey, I think, and the messaging. And, I mentioned earlier that I wasn't necessarily a data scientist. So I think that was actually massively worked in my favor in a way in this journey, because I think sometimes when you're an expert, you're very much stuck into the technical specificities in that passion for science. But when you work with companies that have an operating way for a very long time, it's not so much about the new technicalities. It's more about why is it important to them and how is their life changing because of this. And I think not being that type of geek, I was much more passionate about luxury and fashion and our industry and our products and our creativity. So in some way, I guess I could speak their own language more than speaking the technical language. And I think that was kind of a key to success, really understanding your audience, the people in front of you, and realizing how it can help them and speaking their own language. I think sometimes we use a bit too much vocabulary that is hard and difficult to understand.
So you were the right person to convince them that there are great things to do with artificial intelligence, but where did you start?
We started, I would say, in the obvious place. First of all, I think my approach is always to think big but start small. It's always very hard to convince a company to invest in changing a way it's operating by pitching a huge project. So I think it's very important to have that test and learn approach. It's important to provide that vision of what it could be, even though that vision sometimes can upset people and can disturb some colleagues. But in some way, it allows you to already start the change management. So first of all, forming an opinion that is long-term, believing in it and standing by it is really key, even if it might be destabilizing. But second, it's important to really start small with very concrete, pragmatic, business-oriented use cases. What we've done was, LVMH is a very complex ecosystem. We have 75 brands, 6 divisions. So rather than starting to work with everybody on all the topics, what we did was to choose 2 maisons that were particularly excited and interested, curious, and start to do very concrete business use cases with them. So we started in the CRM domain because that's where we could impact immediately the customer experience. So people could also see it. They could imagine what it was. It wasn't just in the back end. We started by everything that is predictive analytics around the customer preferences, the future behavior. We've put that into the hands of the people in our store. So it's actually quite an interesting journey because those are the people touching our customers, right? But they're also people who are not so much very, very aware of artificial intelligence. It might be even very scary. I think the approach was to give them very simple, predictive information about their clients so they can better prepare their visits and therefore offer better experiences. And that had a big impact both on their own experience as employees. They were more efficient, but also on the customer experience and, of course, the business impact. We really had a double-digit improvement on spending, retention, and so on. So that's how we started. Then we also started to move into other areas like e-commerce. Of course, e-commerce is a no-brainer because we are so proud of offering amazing experiences in our stores. But on the website, there's no one there to greet you, right? So you have to tailor the experience in a different way. Data and AI was a no-brainer for that. We also moved into a bit the media field with targeting. We also started working on product development, but more in the enabling of the people developing the products with better tools at their hands, for example, for costing. These are the type of use cases we've done. And I think that was the approach to really be able to come and visualize to people what this is. And I think that's one of the major conclusions we've had. Actually, this past week, had a conversation of where are we in this journey internally? And I think the conclusion was, aside from all of the projects, what matters most is that now people actually can visualize what it is. So that's maybe the advice, right? To make it visual for people's day-to-day reality, right?
Yeah. So this is the nice story of the use cases that were successful. But do you also have example of use cases that were not, that were a fail?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. We usually say that you should expect half of your use cases to fail. This is, by the way, for us, very difficult to accept because we love perfection. We create perfect products. So we tend to want everything that we do to always be very successful. I think having this mindset that it is important to fail, but you need to fail really fast so that you can reach that success faster. But it requires a managerial change, I would say, to be able to empower your teams and let them know that you can also fail. For us, we've had failures in terms of scale, as an example. Maybe some media use cases didn't always have enough scale to be industrialized. We've had also failures in terms of training of people. The use case was great, the algorithms were working, but we didn't put enough emphasis on training the people using them, so the adoption was poor. I think there's lots of examples like this, but we've learned a lot, so we tend to take a step back and use those learnings as we move to the next maison, the next use cases, and improve.
It's really important to hear that okay, it's okay to fail, it's okay if all the use cases are not good ones. But talking about the managerial side, how do you manage to have the business teams and the data teams work together? Are they working together in the same rooms? Are they collaborating?
That was a key success factor. When you do data projects, it's not tech, it's not business, it's not data, it's really a mix of everything, plus HR, because it's change management. So actually, our first project, from the beginning, we put everyone in the same office space. We created a little desk space where we had people from HR, people from IT, data, all sorts of data profiles, and the business people. And that was the key of being agile, because it's actually very collaborative as a process to create a use case. So it's important to have everyone in the room so that you can make fast decisions and not get stuck. We always work in this way, that is a cross-functional team. Even today, we're organized in cross-functional squads. I think that as we grow in size, because our activity broadens and also the number of use cases, the number of maisons grow, and our team grows in terms of headcount, we've still tried to split down the team in squads that are still 10 people squads, and they are fully integrated with engineering, data science, business translators, plus the business people from the maison, from the group, all working together. That's how we are trying to maintain that sort of empowerment and agility on doing the daily job.
How do you manage the priorities? For example, if the business team have some very important priorities and the technical team, the data team, doesn't have the same ones.
I think this is what we're solving with cross-functional squads, this notion of one roadmap, one backlog. When you have these people in the room, they have to make a compromise and create a common backlog. So that was really the solution to having that single instance. Sometimes it happens that cross-project, you also have those types of decision-making for one common roadmap. So we also put a sort of an extra governance layer that we manage with the executive team to keep track of the progress and make sure that we can arbitrate on the broader priorities. Another way to look at it is by prioritizing by value. So actually what we've done is we've created a value office team that has the same methodology to estimate impact versus complexity of the business projects. And that allows us to prioritize a roadmap based on a clear rationale, I would say.
What are your advice for people who would like to reproduce this really interesting story in their team?
I would say that it's important to have executive sponsorship, even if it's at small scale. It's important to create and empower a small agile team that is cross-functional, it's important to be extremely pragmatic and not gimmicky. So sometimes there are projects on data AI that are more innovation-oriented. I wouldn't recommend to start with those. I would recommend you start with a very important business problem that can be easily visualized by everyone in the company. And just focus on that. Rather than doing lots of little projects that might not have a big impact, just focus on one, do it well, takes a lot of effort, and then industrialize it so that it becomes day-to-day business. And that's how you get people's respect. And afterwards, you can multiply that with more teams, more use cases, more business units. But of course, the change management aspect is quite crucial. So I would really suggest to put a big emphasis on training, continuous training, not just on the expertise, but also on this notion of agility, which means empowerment of operationals. And that's not something that all companies are ready to do. It's important to also have that sort of understanding.
How do you do to have this training? Is it like formal training? Is it more with discussion, sharing good practice?
I would say it's all of the above. First of all, I think we transmit passion. I always am trying to get people in the team who are truly passionate about what we're doing, because that's how you impact the people next to you. Second is every person on the project should always imagine the adoption plan, right? It's not just about you're the expert, so you deliver this part. For example, our data scientists are also supposed to do the explainability part so that they can ensure the adoption by the business people of their algorithms. So every single expert has to have an adoption plan. And then you can also formalize it and scale it, because this is not always so scalable with a data school, for example, or an academy. So this is where we've created a data academy that provides a big list of trainings, both to business people and experts from every business domain on all the topics, that is much more scalable and that can reach truly everyone in the enterprise. And we've done this with the Artifact.
What's your next step? How do you see your role in 3-4 years?
I would say that today we're still in the phase where there's still a big need for business translators. I would say in 3 to 4 years, my dream is that this job no longer exists, because the business people are so aware and data-driven themselves that they don't need these people anymore. So therefore, the central data team, my job, becomes much more of an enabler, an animation, rather than a driver itself. So that to me would be the feeling that we have truly succeeded. Otherwise, I would say that what we're trying to do now is sophisticate even more our approach, tailor our approach to luxury and creativity. So that means, for example, not always incentivizing AI on short-term results, also incentivizing it on Net Promoter Score. How is the customer satisfaction? Maybe that's more important long-term. It's proven to be correlated long-term to business growth. How do we switch a bit that approach, in the algorithmic approach, to make it more luxurious in itself, right? Aside from that, one topic that is emerging a lot is, now that we have all the basics covered, is everything around ethics. We know that also privacy is a big trend coming up. It's been here for years now, but it's really accelerating a lot globally, not just, for example, in France. We have to be much more responsible with the way we collect consent, data, and what we do with this data, and how do we inform the customers about it, and how do we control these algorithms, because sometimes machine learning is great, but sometimes it's better to opt for something more explainable and controllable rather than a black box. So it's types of thinking that we have currently of how can we give meaning to what we do in a deeper way.
Do you feel it's a strong concern, your clients, do they talk to you about that? Or is it more about the values you want to bring, the regulation also?
I think it's both. What we say is luxury is privacy. It has always been about privacy. So the clients give us their trust when they give us their data. So it's important that we treat it very responsibly and we use it to better their experience. We would never do something that doesn't better their experience. That's a principle. But it's also because I think we are just generally more aware of the impact that data AI has on society. And every individual who can play a role in this, it's important that we play it. So it's also a sort of a proactive approach that we want to establish as professionals that everyone, in my opinion, should have, right? How do you impact others and what can you do about it at your own level?
So you started with the use cases. So now, how do you scale it?
When we started initially, we were very focused on the business part. So we had data scientists, we had business translators. We didn't focus so much on the technique. I think now when we want to scale the approach, what we've done is, first of all, create and invest much more in the data platform, data governance, data collection capabilities, because that's really the foundation of it all. We didn't do that before a lot. Now we have teams in place that manage a data platform that is a white label product that is scalable within the Maisons, and also data governance and management policies. Aside from this, we've created as well what we call the value office. The value office, because we're doing more, we have to prioritize it. So the value office, what they do is they create a sort of assessment that allows us to see what is the impact versus value and prioritize the roadmap. As we want to do more, unfortunately, we can't do everything, so we have to choose. I think that is really what changed between these two stages. But as well, I think the impact of upskilling at scale has become more crucial. If we want to scale your approach, you don't have 1 year to onboard every single person before the project starts. So that's where a sort of a data academy has allowed us to prepare the project by upskilling people from the beginning before we arrive on the project. So that really allows us to create this sort of understanding and facilitate the projects to make them faster. That allows us to scale today.
Cross-functional teams, business people working with data people, but are the jobs changing? Are we still talking about business from one side, data from the other side?
I think that the end goal is to have people both in the regions, in the countries, in the markets who are data-driven themselves, plus the business units to be data-driven by nature so that we don't need the business translators anymore. So for me, that is the next frontier, localizing the closest to the market as possible and making people more autonomous. And that's how in time, the central data office becomes much more of a factory of reusable assets, guidelines, trainings, inspiration, and leveraging those best practices rather than executing up until the end, which will be much more in the hands of the business people and the locales.
Humans, very key factors, but what about the technologies? How are you sure that you have the right ones, the last ones?
For us, it's always been very important that we are at the forefront of technology, of innovation, because we are at the group level. So this is what our brands expect from us, to bring them the novelty. So how do we do that? I think it's multiple ways. First, it's through the people that we hire. We do have people with PhD in these domains who do active research. We do partner with other entities like Polytechnique to co-develop some algorithms. We also try to partner with technology companies. We do have a strategic partnership with Google on AI that gives us access to people from Google Brain, for example, or DeepMind, with whom we can exchange on what's coming next, what is the latest breakthrough that we can leverage in some way, but also the respective technological assets. In China, we do exactly the same thing with Alibaba as an example. So it's a mix of having that very strong partnerships at the group level that are unique, that bring value to us, and always keeping that eye out and having that curiosity in the hands of every employee to try and adopt the latest technology and test and learn. So I think we do give ourselves that space for a bit of test and learn. So we do have some people always working on some innovation in parallel of an operational project. That's a mindset that we want to maintain.
Is there something else you would like to share with us?
We have lots of emerging technologies. No, not to mention the metaverse recently. There will always be emerging technologies and really sometimes life-changing innovation. But it's important to keep in mind that it's not so much about the technology, it's about the people and how their lives are changing. So any project that we do around it, I think the first question that we have to ask ourselves is, what does it mean in terms of use cases for them and impact for their lives? And be very focused on this people, change management, but also the practicality of it for them. You know, for example, the metaverse, we are talking about a lot of interesting use cases, but in the beginning, when it came out, it was much more a passion for the technology itself. So we see it progressing as well. We don't know where it will head, but that's sort of my opinion.
What would you recommend us to read, to see? Is there a talk or a book, an article that we should read?
If you want to learn more about data and AI from a business standpoint, it's true that I find the best articles are still the ones done by consulting firms. There's this executive guidebook to AI that is done by McKinsey, Quantum Black, that is quite well done and easy to understand. If you're interested in the future of how can you control AI and how can you make it be responsible, a good book would be The Ethical Algorithm. It's the latest one that I was reading. Otherwise, I love following what Jan LeCun is saying. So he's working at Facebook, but he's also pioneered a lot of the emerging breakthroughs in AI as well. Otherwise, MIT Technology Review is also a good place to see what's happening in this field. So depends on what you like, but these are my core go-to places.
Anca, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to meet you today.
Thank you.
We will be back very soon with a new episode of The Bridge.